Hi everyone, Jane here again. I'm back with my 4 journal page pieces that I started with the backgrounds recently. Thank you everybody who commented and said they were going to play along and that they had different ways of using colour cubes and things like that. It's really fantastic. That's what I love. I love to see that you all have your own ideas and that you are going to join in and have a go. Also, I did have a few comments where people said about actually the starting point isn't the hardest point. It's actually this middle section. And I was having a think and I thought, actually, I think I may agree. For me personally, getting started isn't usually much of a problem. But I know for some that blank space can be quite daunting, which is why I wanted to go right from the very beginning. But I have to say that sometimes it is that once you put that initial sort of material mediums down, it can be a little bit like, well, where do I go from here? What shall I do next? And so that is what we're going to focus on in this video. Now, for me, the middle layers are the part of your project that bring a bit of depth and interest to your pieces. The background is, for me, just that. It's your background. You will see it, some of it at the end, but it's there. It's just to provide you that base. And the focal point is obviously going to really stand out. But for me, it's those middle layers that really sort of hold it together. And that is also the point at which you can usually get most disheartened. It's certainly the place where I often look at it and I think, yes, this is the ugly stage. This is the stage where I really don't know if this is going to work, and you have to just often push on through and keep on going and maybe just add another layer, and until it looks like you want it to, you know it's not done, you're not finished that middle section. So we're carrying on. I thought I'd carry on in the same colour palette because that's part of, I think, how you help get a sort of a coherent page. If you don't want that, if you want to like fling some other colours in, that's totally fine. But if you are finding that you are struggling, then sometimes by sticking and repeating colours, that can help you bring it all together. So even if you add something that maybe you then think, oh, I don't know if that was the right thing, if it's in the same colour palette, once you add something over the top, it's going to just sort of blend back into the background again. So I find that if it's something you struggle with, then that could be a good way to go forward. Obviously, if that's not a problem for you, then you do whatever you want to do and you can fling orange and green or whatever onto it. And actually, sometimes a contrast to the colours is actually really, really nice as well. So I like to often just sit and have a look and think, from what I've done so far, what do I feel I need? So I'm looking first of all at my collagey one, and as much as I really like the collage, I want to tone it down slightly. And I've just realised that I've got the wrong colour gesso out. I got transparent gesso and I wanted white gesso, so I'm going to literally go grab my white gesso. Whoa, that was some paints falling down in the cupboard. And I'm going to add a little bit of white gesso. Let's see if I can even get the lid off. Oh, there we go. So I want to just tone it back a little bit, but I don't want it to be blocked out because that would defeat the point. But I have got a nice bit of texture. That was a bit of that coming up. Let's grab a, not that brush, that's a hideous brush. Let's grab this brush. Now, because I want it to be a little bit more translucent, I'm going to add a little bit of water. Now, I'm going for gesso as opposed to paint for 2 reasons. Number one, because I think I want to put some watercolour over the top of this in a minute to then add a bit of unifying colour back in. But also, gesso is more translucent than white acrylic paint. It's used as a primer. I use it not just as a primer, to be honest. I use it for lots of things, but some people will tell you you can't use it for certain things, but I use it for whatever I want to use it, and you know, that's all I'm going to say on that matter. So there you go. So you can still see a bit of the colour coming through, but I've just toned it back a little bit. I'm just wondering whether to go straight in with the watercolour or give this a quick blast with my heat tool. Now, again, heat tools can be a little bit controversial with some people. Some people don't like to use heat tools because they don't feel that you should be heating things that are acrylic based or that it burns off the pigment. To be totally honest, I've never seen much of a shift in colour by me blasting it with my heat tool, and I'm so impatient that I'd rather just heat it. But if you are concerned about that, just leave things to dry naturally. You know, certain things, to be honest, things like a crackle paste, leave it to dry naturally. Do not heat that, it sort of changes the way it works. Things like, I'm trying to think, things like pigment powders, if you want them to keep the look they've got, leave them to dry naturally. Same as watercolours. If you are happy with how you want the watercolour to work in a certain way and do its own thing, leave it to dry naturally. But I'm really bad. Granulating colours, often I would probably leave them naturally as well. Right, so I'm going to quickly blast this. That will do. Now at this point I want to add some colour in, and it's up to you what mediums you want to use. But again, you just need to consider that if you want to add something and then you're going to add watery products over the top, you might not want to use acrylic paint, even though Gesso, and I get very confused because Gesso is basically acrylic, but you can watercolour sort of over. The other thing I would say is, if there is such a thing as watercolour ground, and I have recently just bought a pot because I was really interested in using this on canvases to see if I could add it to a canvas and then use watercolour on my canvases, because I've got so many canvases that I would normally use mixed media and acrylic paint on, but I wanted to see if I could do it with watercolour. But they do recommend you leave it for 24 hours to dry, and I hadn't thought to do that because it would have been interesting to try it on here with the watercolours. But to be fair, this is mixed media paper, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. But if you've got a surface that's not suitable for watercolour, this is meant to be able to put it on and you can watercolour on it. But I will test that out another time, but I just thought I'd bring that up just in case you wanted to know an alternative. I'm going to use watercolours because I want to sort of get that flowiness, but you could use your things like neo colours, your woodies, anything you wanted to create some colour. But like I said, just be aware of what you're going to put on top. This palette is the Mei Liang palette. It's student grade paint apparently. It's a fairly inexpensive palette. It's a really nice one to start with. Lindsay the Frugal Crafter has information about this palette. It's one she recommends if you're starting out and you want something that has got a lot of colour choice but isn't too expensive. And I still do use it, even though I've discovered slightly more expensive brands, and I just like to use what I like to use. But this one is always still a really nice one to use. So I want to go with some colours. I do love the Permanent Rose. I think that would sort of fit with that. We've got Dioxazine Violet and a Prussian blue is not really dark enough, is it? I would have said probably I wanted an indigo for that. But I might just go with the Permanent Rose and the Dioxazine. I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly. Dioxazine Violet. I'm going to leave it on here just because I can. Now let's have a look. Let's have this brush, because why not? This is my Overwash 1/2 inch. I do like this. This is a very inexpensive brush. These are the Graduate range by De La Rowney. I buy them in the range in the UK, and they were £2.50 each, but now I think they've raised the price. I think they're £2.60 something now. It's disgusting, but every single size that they sell in there seems to be the same price, which I always find quite odd. Like, you can buy a massive one and it's £2.60 odd, and you can buy a tiny little one and it's £2.60 odd. And I find that very strange, because everywhere else you seem to pay different prices according to the size. Now I have to say, with these sections, I haven't got any preconception at all really about what these are going to turn out like. Sometimes when I'm doing projects, well, quite a lot of the time, especially if I'm making videos for YouTube, I do have an idea in my head. I try not to have too much of an idea in my head, because what I find is if you've got too much of a preconceived idea of what you want to create, that's often when you might become a bit disappointed with what you've achieved, because it doesn't look as you had it in your head. I hope that makes sense. Whereas if you don't really know, then whatever you do is going to, you know, is going to be fine, because you didn't know what it was going to be like in the first place. So it's always a nice surprise. So I'm sort of going along where the bits of washi tape and that are, and the bits of collage, just to add a little bit of colour. Now this is what I mean about, this is when you might start to think, what are you doing? What's going on here? This is now just like, I like the collage, now you've messed it up. Sometimes I think that too, but you've got to trust the process. You've just got to think, right, I'm just going to go with the flow. What it will be, what it will be. That's all I'm going to add to that. I just want that. That's my next layer. I am going to add more middle layers to that, but for now, that is where I want that to be. That needs to dry. I'm going to leave it to dry on its own. I'm not going to even make it have a heat tool on it. This one, I have had a little think about this one, because this is bugging me. So if there's something that bugs you, you know, feel free to fix it. You know, it's your project. Do what you like. So I am going to add a bit of shading around these planets, I guess, because it's got a bit messy. It went a bit, you know, it was a bit uncontrolled, which is fine because it's a background layer. So I've got my Inktense pencils, and I do believe I've got one that's an indigo, deep indigo. You could use, I have also got these Tim Holtz watercolour pencils, but any watercolour pencil. The difference between a normal watercolour pencil such and an Inktense is that Inktense is, as it says, it's ink based. So when it dries, it's a permanent colour. So you can't then, once it's dried, you can't go back in and move it. If I went back into my watercolour, once it's dried, I could. To be fair, I often find watercolour dries quite stained in, so you can't always move it. But in theory, if you get a watercolour pencil, you colour with it, then you could come back in later and re-wet it and move it again. With these, once they're dry, they're dry. But whilst they are not being watered out, you know, they're fine. So to move around, and whilst they're wet, you can move them. Now I find with Inktense that the more pigment I put down, the better. I used to really struggle with them when I started out. I'm going to use this dirty water, I don't care. That I couldn't seem to get them to move very much before they were drying. But what you've got to do really is you've got to put quite a lot of pigment down, and then you've got to really water them out. Now I have put the pencil straight to the paper here, but you can take your brush and just lift it from the actual pigment part of the pencil. You don't dip them in water. If you dip them in water, the water's going to get into that wood and ruin your pencils. But just from the top of there, that's sometimes I find an easier way to deal with them. Now you do get a lot of colour, and I don't want this harsh. So whilst it's still wet, and this is the important part, as soon as this dries, I'm going to get that line there. I can't move it. So you want to just get in there and move it while, see, already that is starting to stain there because it's starting to dry. I don't mind too much. You know, I don't mind if it sort of makes a sort of cloudy looking night sky. But I thought, because it sort of looks like the planets, having that indigo in the background, I don't necessarily need it all coloured, but just around some of them. And I am being a little bit careful because this is watercolour, so you can lift that back up. You know, if you're not careful, it will sort of I always want to say regurgitate, which is not the word. Reconstitute, I think is the word. Reconstitute that paint, or to reactivate the paint. So I'm just going to do a little bit around here. Now I could at this point, I think I will just maybe speed this up a little bit so that you don't have to watch me do all this in real time. So I will speed this bit up and then I'll be back. So for somebody who said there was only going to do a little bit, I ended up doing the whole thing. But now that can be drying whilst we move on to this one. Now I'm feeling that this is a plainish back. I would like to do some sort of mark making. Now because this is a watery product in the background, I'm probably not going to add any more water-based products, as in water reactive products on there. So I'm thinking that I could use my just normal pencils. I don't like to call them normal pencils, but you know, not watercolour pencils, or some acrylic markers. I've got these Arrtx ones which do give me nice shapes, or I could do both. I could do 2 layers for the price of one for this one. So I've got a mixture of, oh, I thought I had another pencil. Oh, I have. There we go. I've got a mixture of brands here. So these ones are Caran Pablo, this one and this one. This one is a Polychromos. So this one is purple. This one is purple violet. This one is Cobalt turquoise. And then I've got a Rembrandt Lyra, which is Prussian blue. Now, I tend to like harder pencils, and as I mentioned in my last video, I struggle with pencils a little bit. I can't do too much pencil colouring because it does really hurt my thumbs, because it is quite hard. And I have to admit, I probably don't make it easy on myself because I do prefer a harder pencil. I've got some Prismacolors. Personally, for me, I don't like them. I'm too heavy-handed. That's probably why I've got painful thumbs, because I'm too heavy-handed. And I break Prismacolors willy-nilly because they're too soft for me. So I need a nice hard pencil. But I'm not going to do anything too mad. I thought I might do a little bit of just shading along some of the lines. So I'm holding it at the end. That also, if you do struggle with your hands a bit, that makes it a little bit easier. And I'm trying not to press too hard. I just feel like I want to just add a little bit of, because I've got those lines, I'm sort of just going with the lines and just adding a bit of that one in there. Let's add a bit of pink. Again, I'm not really thinking about this too much. I'm just letting my brain sort of take over independently. That doesn't even make sense. Let my hand take over. My brain hopefully is always in charge. And let's go a bit on the pink up here as well. So I'm just trying to just add a bit of extra shading. Now these, because they're they are oil or wax based, I can never remember. You can mix your pencils. You do not have to stick to either oil based pencils or wax based pencils. They all will go together. I have all my different brands of pencils, not that I've got tons, but I have them all in one big case generally, apart from I have a few out on the table to remind me to use them. So you can mix and match them. You don't have to only use oil based pencils all together, or only use wax based. But that does mean that these are now, because they're a waxy finish or an oil finish, you are going to struggle with some products over the top. Now I'm going to hopefully be able to use my acrylic markers. Acrylic markers are pretty good. The main thing that kills an acrylic marker is if you put it into wet medium, so you really do need to sort of make sure that things are dry, you know, before you try putting acrylic markers over the top. Even if you think they're dry, sometimes they're not dry through to the core. I don't know, I'm not even really, I'm talking, I'm really not thinking now. I'm sort of feeling that I want you to do a little bit of border around here in the corners. There we go, that will do. So it's just added a little bit more colour on, and now I'm going to go with my Arrtx one. Now these don't have colour names, they have numbers. 70, 46, 44 and 75, if that means anything to anybody. But this one looked like it's a blue, so let's just do some mark making in the blue section. Now I am, as well as doing my colours from the colour palette, I do usually allow myself, you know, what you do is actually using it, you know, but I do put often black, white and a metallic sort of in as well. I sort of class them as part of my colour palette. So as you can see, your acrylic markers go over beautifully. So this one is going to be really abstract. I feel this is going to be very, very abstract. This one I'm feeling is going to be more representational in some ways. These ones I have no clue at the minute. They're just doing their own thing right now. So let's do some circles. Always good. I do love a circle. And doodling into your abstract sort of marks and patterns is like just another really therapeutic way of doing your art journaling and your projects. I feel like, I don't know what I want to do. I want to go like this, and then I feel like I maybe want to go. Now I'm at an awkward angle. Something like that, and then let's get these. Let's get a couple of Poscas. Let's carry. So this one now, I would say that's 2 middle layers, because I've added pencil shading, then I've added my acrylic marker there. Now let's add some extra acrylic marker. So these are the Posca ones. As you can see, don't have to shake these ones up. They're already in there. I store mine face down because when I've seen mine, I bought these. I wasn't gifted these. I bought these myself. When you get the bigger sets, they come in boxes where they are stored like that. Mine came in just a box because it was a set of 30, might have been less, can't remember, but they didn't come in the box of things. But so I store them in my pots, and I store them face down because that's how they store them in the other things. But with your Posca pens, you don't have to worry, because the paint isn't kept in the tip, it's kept in the barrel. So each time you need to shake it, and sometimes you will need to pump as well. Let's go round. And the nice thing with acrylic markers is acrylic markers will go on acrylic markers. Acrylic markers, you know, are pretty good for going on most things. They are designed to you know, go onto glass and plastic and everything. So that's why they're, you know, quite good for this sort of thing. Although I do still find they're a pain in the bum sometimes. Like now, have I got my thicker one? Now this is a 1M. I find the thinner ones are sometimes more temperamental than the thicker ones. So this is a 3M. So this is obviously you're getting more paint in the nib, and I think that's why sometimes the thicker ones are easier to deal with. There we go. And then we've got black. Now this is back to the thin one. That's how they look different. So that's a 1M, that's a 3M, and then they go right up to really, really thick ones. Right, let's do some dots along these for the moment. Then I'm going to leave it, and I think I might use some gold in this at a later date when this is all dried properly, and I might get some ink in. So already sometimes with certain pages I can already in my head be thinking, oh, I know what I want to do with this. Sometimes it's not until I'm doing it that I'm going to know. This is, I do enjoy that. This is just fun. I'm going to leave that. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave that one, and I'm going to move on to this one. And then I'm going to have to leave this because I've decided I do want some texture on this. So I'm going to go with some white texture paste. I want to match in the shapes that I used in here. Now they're very geometric, and there's some squares, and they were by Asher for Lemon Creation, and I do know, excuse my big stencil folder, this is my stencil folder. Finding ways to store stuff I know is a common thing that people ask, and I think you just have to find what's best for you. And in the end I've put my stencils in one of these because I can't. Finding ways to store things is just so hard. Now this is one of my favourite ones of Lemon Creation stencils, and you will see me use this a lot. It is called Back to Square One, and I think because I've got the squares on here, this one will be ideal. And I've left this one last on purpose because I did think I was going to use texture paste, and obviously I don't want to put that on and then be doing these because I'm going to squash it. So then I'll cut. I always go to undo the bottom. When you have to keep undoing the packaging, eventually it loses its stick and they fall out. So one way to be able to keep, if you want to keep it in your packaging, I know not everybody does, but sometimes I do because I want to be able to reference where it's from and the name of the stencil. Otherwise I will forget, as you know, because I've got many videos where I say I have no clue what that stencil is. But if you just slit the top, you still eventually will, you know, find that they break, but that will last a little bit longer. Now I like this one because it's got all different sizes, and I'm thinking I want some of these smaller ones. So I've got Pretty Gets Gritty white texture paste. This is one of my favourite texture pastes because it's quite a lightish but not too light texture paste. My lovely palette knife. I did bend it the other day because what was I doing? Oh, I was trying to get I was trying to get something off of something, and I decided, oh, I'll lose my palette knife, and I bent it, and I had to then bend it back. So take a little bit of the texture paste and sort of 45-degree angle, and hold your stencil down. Don't go off the side like that. And then when you're ready, just lift up. Okay? And that's how you get it not going under. With the texture paste it's not so bad. It's like, it genuinely is just a bit like buttering bread. I tend not to put it on too thick, so I go over to scrape off the excess. And I would say, I know some people don't clean their stencils full stop. If I'm using ink and it's water reactive, I wipe it off just because I don't want it to transfer. If it's paint, I do tend to clean my stencils, but not obsessively, but if it is texture paste, I would recommend you do clean it really quickly, because if you've got little holes like are on there, then you do not want your texture paste drying. You will be able to get it off. You know, that it's stencils are mylar, which is a form of plastic. You can clean them, but it's an effort. You know, and if you can wipe it off straight away, why would you not do that? Why would you leave it and then have to struggle once it's all blocked all the holes up? So that's how I view it. But I'm going to leave this now to dry. I'm going to pop that in the water, and I will be back with you once this is all dried, and we'll do a little bit more middle layers, because we definitely need more middle layers to our layers. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, it's had a bit of drying time. I did heat blast the texture paste a little bit just to try and dry off the top. If you do use a heat tool on your texture paste, you just need to be aware that although the top of it may be dry and it will form a crust, it may still be damp underneath. It was a very thin layer, so I'm not going to worry too much. I'm looking at this one here, and I'm feeling I've lost a bit of that background, and I want to try to bring it back in a little bit. So I feel like I want to just dry brush a little bit of white gesso over that. Oh goodness me, I thought that wasn't going to undo then. I'm going to take it out there. Now, dry brushing is, as it says, you're trying to add as little on your project as possible in a way. So I'm going to take some of the gesso and I'm going to work it into the brush, take some off, and then I'm going to, at a 45 sort of degree angle, just very lightly brush across the surface. And that's probably hardly visible, but that's the point. I want to just gradually build a little bit up. I don't want it to be too thick. I just want it to try and catch the texture. Now I can tell, I think it is lifting some of the watercolour, but that's fine. I'm not worried about that too much. It might not be actually. Sometimes it will, sometimes it doesn't. There we go. So I'm trying to sort of go where I know the edges are, so I can try and catch some of the edges a little bit to give a bit more definition. And this is the thing, sometimes you lose a bit of definition when you add other layers, but you can bring it back in if it's what you want with something like dry brushing, or if you've got gilding waxes, things like that, that can bring back, you know, texture back into things. That's not too bad. It's not, the thing is, it was quite a fine texture in that it was, you know, it's quite a low lying texture. It wasn't super thick. It's not like the texture paste, but it just bring it back a little bit. So it's just catching it a little bit. So hopefully you can see that a little bit better. That shouldn't take long to dry because that's a very, very thin layer. I was going to add gold into this, but actually I'm thinking I might do something different with that in a bit. This one, I think I'd like to add some stenciling that matches. Now I've got the circles going on, I'm feeling the vibe of the circles, and I feel like I may add a bit of coloured stenciling with just some acrylic paint rather than texture paste. So we've got the texture of this one here, and then we can have sort of flat stenciling here. But this one I want to add a little bit of colour, and I think I want to go with a pigment powder. So I've got the Dirty Gertie Drunken Dust, which is Indigo Thrill, and I thought that would be a nice colour, but I don't want to tip it and get too much. So I'm going to take the lid off, always dangerous. And I'm going to get a brush, and I just want to dip it in and just add just a little sprinkle. I'm just going to try here first. There's not too much there. I'm going to put the lid back on because I don't want to get water in my pigment powder, because this is literally colour in a powder form. So this is, you know, pigment powder. This one doesn't have anything like a mica or anything in it. Some powders have micas to make them more sparkly. This one is just the colour, and there's usually lots of different colours in there. And when you spritz them, you get a sort of a mix. And the more you spritz, the more they will mix up to make one colour. Now, I didn't put an awful lot on there, which is quite okay. So I can now add, because I've got that water sitting there now, I can add a little bit more into that. And I can just add as much or as little as I want. And you can then pour it in amongst, and this is one of my favourite things. And once you've found a favourite thing to do, don't feel ashamed or bad about doing it again and again and again, because I do. I repeat the things I like over and over again. That is, you know, how you learn. That is, you know, if you enjoy that, do it, you know. Don't feel that you have to do something different every single time. You know, if you like texture paste and pigment powders, use texture paste and pigment powders on everything. Not necessarily on everything, but you know, if you want to use it on everything, use it on everything. So I've got that bit there. Let's have a little bit on here where this bit is, because I like how it flows around the texture paste. I'm not going to bother putting the lid on, but I'm going to move it out of the way. Oh, that was a bit stronger, wasn't it? Oh, I'm liking that. Now, if you want to keep the where you get the separation, then don't spread as much. Don't put as much water on. The more water you put on, you'll find, like here, where it's mingled together, it makes one colour. If you want like the separation, you just need to sort of leave it where it is. So I think I'm going to leave it like that. I don't want it all over. I just wanted a little bit of that colour on. So we've added a bit of white to this one. I think that may be dry enough now to add a bit of stamping. And I was having a look, and where I've got these blocks here, it reminded me a bit of a grid, and I just want to do, I don't want to clutter this one up too much. I feel like I just want to do something down the middle, because I'm already in my head, I'm starting to think of where I would put maybe a focal point. Now, you don't have to put focal points on things. I tend to put a focal point, and I tend to put a sentiment, because that's just what I like in my projects. But I mean, you could just leave it like this, you know, or you could just put a sentiment on there, it wouldn't matter. But I want to put a little bit of definition in the middle, because I'm thinking if I do have a focal point, it's probably going to be sat somehow in this semicircle, so it would be like a continuation. So I've got this texture stamp by Darkroom Door, and I'm going to go with, before I do anything else actually, I'm just looking at that little puddle of water, and I am just going to get rid of that, because I don't want to stick my arm in it. And also this one here, just so if you just get a little bit of kitchen towel and just get the corner, you don't even have to hardly touch it, it almost sucks up into it. That's it, that will do. Leave that over there. And now I'm going to get an archival ink, because I know archival will go over other things. Now I'm going to go, I think, with Villainous Potion, because it's a bit darker. The other ones, when I used them, were a bit pale, and I think I want to have a little bit more of a darker purple, which sort of verging between the purple and the blue really. And I'm going to not ink my whole stamp, I'm just going to ink sort of along the middle. Oh, there was a little, sometimes you get these little felt fibres. Sometimes you really do probably want to get rid of that, because otherwise it will end up on your project and you'll go, oh, well, that's what I do anyway. So I'm going to put that in there and just press there. So I've just got that bit coming out then. Now I'm going to just take a little section and just go here, maybe a little bit up here. I might go a little bit in there, and I might just do it a little bit on the end, just to, I just want to now, I think, just add a little bit into that, and that's all I want. So you stop when you're happy. You might want to cover the whole thing, or you might be happy with just a little tiny bit smaller than what I've done, but I just wanted a little bit. So for this one then, we had the collage background, and then for our middle layers I put some gesso down, put some watercolour down, then dry brushing gesso, and then a bit of stamping. That's, I think, I don't know. No, I'm looking at that. Needs something else. That does need something else. I will think about that though, of what else that needs, because I do feel that needs something. I'm wondering whether it needs a bit more collage on the top. We'll think about that. This one is now drying. This one I'm going to do some stenciling with. This one I think I'm going to add some collage to, but I might also add some gold. Not sure. Thinking about that. So I will leave you for a moment and then I will be back. Okay, so I found one of them stencils where I don't know where it came from. But it's got lots of lovely circle shapes on it that I'm thinking I would like to add to this section here. Now I've got two different acrylic paints. These are Dyna paints from Pebeo, which means they're like got an iridescence. This one is violet blue and this is blue, iridescent blue green. So iridescent violet blue and iridescent blue green. And I was debating which one to use, and I was going to go with the pink because then I thought actually maybe what I need is a bit of a contrast. So I'm going to go with this one. I know it's not. See, now this is the point where I go, I know that's not in that colour scheme, but you do get greeny blues in Aurora Borealis, and I want something a little bit sort of, oh, let's put that one there. We'll just use that bit to start with. Sometimes you just want to have a little bit of contrast, so I'm going to use my Stipply stencil brush. This is my favourite way to stencil paint through, and I'm going to have it going across some of these areas, and I tap it up and down, and this is how you help not to get under the stencil, and making sure that you do not have too much paint on your brush or whatever, you know, tool you decide to use to put your paint on. So I'm going to go with this little cluster here. So I sort of squish it into my brush and tap it off. If I know I haven't got much on the brush, I will sort of swirl it around, but I generally try and tap where possible because it just makes sure that you don't you sort of are going up from above, so you're not going under the stencil. And as you'll see, that little tiny bit that went on my finger has gone an awful long way. So let's move this. I don't think I'm going to have to add, let's use this one at the bottom, any extra paint down there, because now even though this is starting to run out, oh, I didn't mean to sort of go into that section, but it will now. And let's just add a little tiny bit here. So there we go. So I haven't had to add any extra paint. That was a tiny bit that fell out of the lid, and that's done all of that. So that's fine. So that this, I could wipe this straight away just to make sure that's not going to damage my stencil, but you know, also it won't transfer because it's acrylic, so it's going to dry, you know, set. But if you eventually you do want to start taking it off, obviously the longer you leave it, the more difficult that is going to be. So it's, you know, worth sometimes just thinking about that. The other two that I've decided, this one I'm totally happy with. The only thing I would maybe consider is maybe a little bit of gilding wax over the top. I'll consider that once I've done these two and think about whether I want to add something on top just to bring out that texture a little bit more, because that's always quite nice. This one I do think needs something, and this definitely needs something. Now I might go in with my gold pen, but then I don't want that one to have gold in it, I don't think, but I do want some collage. So I have got my Dina Wakley collage tissues, and this one is called Elements. I got this one up because it's got lots of sort of background shapes, which is what I want. I don't want pictures as such, I want shapes to go in here. And I've got my Liquitex matte medium. So let's have a look. So I've got this one. Ooh, 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 yeah. And oh, I don't want to use the same on both of them. I know that's silly because it doesn't matter, but I am thinking I could have a strip. I'm just thinking that for this one, oops, I'm dropping that. For this one, I'm thinking I just want a strip. Now, with your collage tissues, oh, that's folded over. you will have one way that tears nice and straight and one way that doesn't. It's because of the way the fibres work in the paper. So let me, right, so if I try and tear that way, see that? That's like all over the shop. And that is really hard. If I go this way, it tears me off a nice straight line. So having a torn edge gives you a sort of a more natural look when you stick it down. But in this particular case, I'm going to just cut it with the scissors at the end because it's going to the end anyway, so I'm not worried. But I do want it to be sort of over, sort of having some coming off the end. And so if I know that if I fold that where roughly, not exactly, just roughly where I know that should be. Now all these little bits you can keep to just add on as collage in other places. So let's move that one aside, back over to here. That one can go, I just want it across the middle, but you will still see once this is on that will come through. Now I'll put those there. I don't know why I'm shaking it. I don't know if I need to shake it. And so I'm going to put a little bit just along the middle here, and I will put a bit. Now if you want your, sometimes when you put your tissues down, so I'm just looking for a brush, they don't go as translucent as you want, and sometimes that's because you haven't put enough medium on them. So I tend to really spread my medium all across the back of the tissue as well, just to make sure that when it goes down it blends in as much as possible. So let's just pop that across the middle. You do get a bit of wiggle sort of time with this. And there you can see that where the white of the paper is, it's now blending in, and you can still see that stamping behind. So it starts to look like a part of the image. I just wanted something on there. I don't know why, just did. And sometimes that's the point, you don't know why, you just do. So let's get that really into there like that. Right, I'm just going to have to go for a minute because I think somebody may be at the door. No, there was nobody at the door. I think it must be somebody next door. So I want to just add some of these on now. I'm thinking, now if you want to get a nice fluffy edge and it's not a straight line, then, oh, I do like that one. Then what you can do is you need to get some water. I go on the back because that's the easiest where it's going to soak in, because that's the side that's not printed. And then you can just, I take my sort of between my thumbs generally. If it goes into it, I'm not worried. It's, you know, it's going to be a collage element. It's not going to be my focal point, although it could be. This is the thing. At any point, any of these layers you put in could be in a different layer. You know, the things you put in the middle could have been in the background. The things you put in the background could be in the middle. The things that are in the middle could be your focal points in the end. It, you know, it just depends on what you want to do. Let's just take a bit more of that. I'm thinking that I would like probably 3 of these circles or 3 elements on here. So maybe that one could go here. And then I'm not going to stick them down until I know what I want to do. I think I like this one here. Let's go around this one. Now it may be that I do this and I think, yep, that's it, that's my middle layers done, I now just need focal point, And I might leave it, come back tomorrow and go, actually no, that's not finished. I need something else on there. And you know, and that's totally fine as well. So, you know, you just keep going until you're done. There isn't a set number. There isn't a set, you know, this is how many layers you need to put into, you know, your middle part. So I'm going to cut that in half because I want to put that there. And then I'm thinking the other section could be maybe here. Do we like that? And this is where you don't stick it down until you're ready. I feel. Oh, that's it. That's it. That's what I like. And when you know, you know. Right, so I do always tend to sort of go on the background. I find the neo colours tend to not come up really when you go over. So like I'm going over that. There's a bit of blue coming up, but not tons and tons. So, but you know, as long as you're not really scrubbing things, but actually having that bit of blue can help to tie that in anyway. Let's go. Where was I doing that? Here, on the back of this one. I think that needs a bit more. You can generally tell if you need a bit more. Let's have that there. Just love how it just melts into it. It's just fabulous. I love it. Just love collage tissue. I just love collage, I think. I just like the idea of cutting things up and putting them back together. I just find hilarious. There we go. And then that one. And it does make a difference having the fluffier edges rather than a cut edge, but you know, if you do what's easiest for you at the time. So now at this point, once that's dry, I could go back over with some acrylic pen or some ink or splashes or something, and actually I'm looking at it thinking I might do that. So I might put some extra on there. I'm still feeling, I don't know what it is, there's still something here that is bugging me, and I think I need to go in with a bit of colour and just emphasize maybe around some of the elements. It feels too bland. That's not the word I want to use, but it does. I love this one. I love this one. This one needs something. I think that needs some stamping on it. I feel it needs something else. And I'm going to put something else on there. That's not ready. And this, I don't know what it is. Let me give it a quick blast with the heat tool and I'll be back again. Okay, so I have grabbed my purple woody pencil and I'm going to just do, I'm not going to water it out. It is water reactive, but I'm going to just squish it out with my finger because there is gesso and all sorts on here. I know that it will blend. I just feel that this just needs a bit of something around here. So I'm going to emphasize this semicircle because I want it to be a sort of standing out a bit. It needs something standing. I think it's just all the same. It's all on one level. And one of the things that you can notice on your projects is if there's no contrast. Now there is the contrast of the black and white, but I felt that the bits that were there before had lost some of their sort of shape. So let's just go around where some of those areas were and just add a little bit of this in. Hopefully that will be enough just to lift it. That already is making me happier. Now I'm not too worried because I know that there is still going to be like a focal point on this, but that straight away is made me happier to have it like that. Now other people might look at that and think, oh, I don't know why you did that. But that's the point. It's my project. So, and you know, you do what what suits you for your project, and I felt it just needed a bit of that emphasis back in there. I would still potentially think it needs something else, but I'm not quite sure. I've got my Shabby pink wax matte finish from Finnabair, and I'm going to just put a little bit of that down and just add a little bit of that to my stenciling here. I'm not going to worry about everywhere, I just want a little bit just to lift. Let's just put the lid on that. Ooh, got that all over the lid. This is a solvent based wax. You can get all different sorts of waxes, but this one I will need to clean that up with a bit of isopropyl. That I'm happy with. Now this one, I want a bit of text. I've decided that's what I need on here, so I'm going to go with one of these polka doodle stamps. I'm liking, I was going to say that one, but actually I think I'm going to go with this one. I don't know which way up it goes. Does it matter? I don't think it particularly matters, you can't really read it. What I usually do is if I'm struggling to think, I can't read what that says, I will get a bit of paper and just stamp it out just so I can check. I'm going to use the same colour that I used on the stamping here because it's a dark purple. Let's just see if it's this way up. Yes, I think so. I don't want loads of it, I just want a bit of something just to add a little bit more darkness. I'm sort of going across in a diagonal. It wasn't intentional, but it sort of just happened of its own accord. It's how I tend to sort of go, is in a diagonal. Let's put a little bit there, just a little bit. So you can like stamp a lot lighter as well. You don't have to do it all dark. There we go. I like that much better. That has added something to that one for me. So the final one I want to add a bit more to is this one, and I am thinking, I was not going to go with the gold, but now I think I do want to. I don't know if that's, so I've got my Posca pen, which does not seem to want to work, so we will go to my Copic, which is my Copic Acrea. I hope that's all totally dry, because I find these ones, because they are finer, they can sometimes not like stuff. Now this is it's a different sort of gold colour. I know that may sound silly, but you know how you get different sort of types of gold, but it is very much a different, it's a much more yellowy gold, I think, than the Posca pen. I've got the thicker Posca pen. I might go with that because I prefer, to be totally honest, I prefer the gold colour of the Posca than I do. Having said that, that one looks the same as that one. Maybe it's the thinner one that's just the nicer one. I've got this one, which is the cheap one. Well, that's also quite yellowy. Oh, my only nice one I liked was that one that's not working. Let's give it a really good shake and a really good... It is there, but it's not, doesn't want to work. It's a darker gold. Oh, no. Right, let's go with this one then, since we started with this one. Well, it's not showing up very well, is it? Now you could use, I have Winsor & Newton inks in gold, and if you've got like a dip pen, you could use them. Just want to I think just do a little bit of, so you're not going to overly see this. It's just, it just adds something in. And I think just over that, just add into some of those shapes. Go along here. trouble with me with this part is that I then get a bit carried away of adding in pen. So, oh, now, so now I'm thinking, what about if I add a little bit into this one? I feel like now I need to add a bit here as well. And this will go nicely with that shiny paint that we've used there. I think now I need to just go around every single one. I think it just needed a little lift. Maybe that's what this one needs as well. Sometimes, you know, gold pen is what everything needs in life. I can imagine there's people now screaming, "Stop! Stop with the pen!" Oh, see, the trouble is if I put some on here, I feel like then maybe I have to put some on every single one, but actually I think I like that. Now you can sometimes get away with, if you've got something like matte medium on something, if you put something on and you don't like it, you can sometimes get away. You know, I like my dashes and my dots. It's like one of my things. I like that. I think that actually, do you know what? I think it needed something like that just to lift it. Should I do some on here just to tie it all together? Oh, go on. Just do a couple around a couple of the squares. Not too much. I have to do 3 and 3. There we go. That'll do. I'm going to take the tape off, because I think my middle layers are done, and I want to take the tape off before I do. In the next video I will do my final focal points, and we'll talk about collage and what we can use for focal point. Oh, that's come off there. I don't know what I'm going to cut that. It's just there, because that's going to bug me. And what we can use, you know, to add focal points to pages. So let's take that off. Let's go with this one. This is one of the most satisfying parts, isn't it, of any project, is taking this tape off. Why has that done that? Just to be a pain. Because this has got collage on, hasn't it, and it's attached itself to it. This one has pulled a little bit in places, but it's fine. Oops. That's, yeah, it's because that's probably gone over the top of that tape. So let's just carefully, it's going to have to tear it a little bit. Oh, wow. Do you know, I could just stick a sentiment on each of those. But I'm loving them. But that just shows you have to go through those stages of saying, this isn't finished. I don't know, you know, it looks okay, but it's just not how I want it. And just keep going until you are happy with how it looks. So I'm now happy with those being ready for focal points. So I will come back probably in about a week. You know, I'm not promising. And we will finish them off with, and we'll talk about how you can make, what you can use to make focal points. Do you need, I mean, I don't know if they need focal points, but I will put focal points on because that's what I do, and we'll round it all off. So again, if you're joining in, let me know in the comments, because it's really lovely to know that there are people doing this along with me. I'm so happy. And let me know, what's your favourite thing to use to make your layers? Is it the stenciling, stamping? Is it collage? Is it paint? Is it watercolour? What do you like? Mark making? What is it that you enjoy the most putting into your projects? And I will see you again soon. Oh, if you like the video, do please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button if you'd like to join us on this journey. And I will see you again soon. Bye bye.